Today we're exploring one of the most haunting mysteries of modern times, the disappearance and tragic deaths of two Dutch students, Kris Kremers and Lisanne Froon. Their story begins with adventure, optimism, and cultural exchange, but it ends in the fog of unanswered questions, strange discoveries, and theories that range from tragic accident to sinister foul play. So grab your backpack, lace up your hiking boots, and join me as we walk the trail into Panama's cloud forest and into the mystery of Kris and Lisanne. Hi, I'm Natasha.
And I'm Cassandra.
And this is Strange Sisters. And as you heard just a second ago, we are covering the case of Kris and Lisanne, who went missing in 2014, so a little over 10 years ago, in Panama when they were just having a fun trip and trying to explore more of the world. So, anything you want to say before we get started, Cassandra?
I mean, I've got my emotional support stuffed animal ready to go, so let's get to it.
Yeah, so I'm sure a lot of people have heard of this case. It's a pretty well-known case, but not that much information is really known about it. It's kind of just the general two girls went hiking. Some weird pictures were taken leading up to the days of their death, and then they were just never seen again. So I tried to find as much information as I could. There was one really awesome blog I found of an engineer who is from the US, but he now lives in Central America, and he was able to find some really good sources that just weren't coming up for me, I guess maybe just because of where I'm searching from. So yeah, I'm going to reference a lot of information that he linked so I know that it's legitimate information. And yeah, we're just gonna get into it. So in 2014, Kris Kremers, who was 21, and Lisanne Froon, who was 22, they were both students from the Netherlands, and they set out on the trip of a lifetime. They were going to backpack across Panama, and they'd spent 6 months planning, and they were really eager to immerse themselves in the new culture, volunteer, and sharpen their Spanish skills. So it's just, young girls looking to do something exciting and travel and go someplace that's very different from their home country, which I think a lot of people can relate to.
So this is a huge stretch. I mean, huge stretch. But do you remember in American Horror Story Hotel, there were two Norwegian girls who were like traveling in college? That's like the first thing I thought of.
Yeah, I don't know if they were inspired by that, but yeah, you definitely can see some similarities there. I could see that where that could possibly be something that they pulled from. So the pair traveled to Panama, where they backpacked, volunteered, and eventually settled in the town of Boquete, I think is how you say it. And there they stayed with a local host family while helping out at a small school. So they were staying at a hostel that I believe was ran by a host family. I found some kind of conflicting information on that. But either way, they were staying somewhere that was, relatively safe. And so, by all accounts, the girls were really bright, obviously adventurous, and responsible young women. They were known for their close friendship, obviously. They were traveling the world together, and their excitement about experiencing everything that Panama had to offer.
Host families and that entire system freaks me out.
Yeah, I know. And I don't know how it was arranged, if it was arranged through like a travel agency or they just met them through like a website. I'm not really sure. And like I said, I kept reading different stories. So some were saying that they were staying with a host family, some were saying that they were staying in a hostel. So I don't know if it's one of those things where the people that run the hostel kind of just like took them under their wing, because they were like, oh, you're young women traveling by yourself. So, but yeah,
Young,
either way, they had people there that they knew.
young women traveling by themselves can only go one of two ways: really good or really bad.
Yeah, unfortunately, you definitely hear a lot of horror stories about that, and this one is no exception. I'm sure a lot of people have been a lot more cautious since hearing this story. And it wasn't that long ago either. So,
That's why dad's always scared when you go hiking.
yeah, I mean, I'm not hiking in a different country, but yeah. And these women were about the same age as me. I was 21 in 2014. Yeah, this one definitely I remember when it happened, and it's been on my mind a lot since then. So, on April 1st of 2014, they set off to hike a popular trail called El Pianista, and they never returned. So let's get into the jungle. The El Pianista Trail is deceptively beautiful. It begins as a well-marked path winding upward through the misty highlands until it reaches a summit with breathtaking views. So the photo that you've probably seen of these women with Kris, I was the one that is doing the thumbs up. They're taking a selfie. That is at the summit of this trail.
Last picture being a selfie.
Well, it's not exactly the last picture, but it's the last picture of them together, I guess you could say. So I'll get more into that because there are quite a few pictures that they recover that are quite strange.
Okay.
Yeah, so they still had like a camera, like a regular camera. It wasn't a phone. I mean, I'm sure they had a camera on their phone, but they were using a regular camera.
Okay. I'll save my questions till we get there.
Yeah. So instead of turning back, investigators believe that the girls pressed forward, which I don't totally believe. I'm not sure why they would want to do that. From my understanding, the trail or kind of lack of trail gets pretty sketchy after this point. So I'm not really sure. Like they got to the summit. Usually at that point, you just want to turn around and go home. So I think this is maybe where the foul play started, but investigators are saying that they think that for whatever reason, they just decided to keep going. So beyond the summit lies dense, treacherous jungle leading toward a river, which locals call the Grinder, for its deadly flash floods and near impassable terrain. So that's why I can't imagine why they would want to keep going. And even if they did, I would think that they would turn back pretty quickly. I mean, as a hiker myself, and I know a lot of people that hike as well, it's usually you can tell when you're like out of your league. And these women were not prepared for any kind of through hiking trek or anything like that. With like this was just supposed to be a casual day hike. So it's not like they had supplies and stuff to camp overnight. And we'll get into what was included in their what was found in their backpack, but it was like nothing substantial. So it's just strange that they think that they would have kept going, considering how terrible the trail was if they were to keep going. It just doesn't really make sense. You'd think they would maybe hike, I don't know, a quarter mile and say, "Oh, we're out of our league," and then turn around would be my thought.
Or like called the forest ranger. So
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can think of is that maybe they went a little off trail and they got lost or something like that happened where they couldn't figure their way back. But I would think like pretty quickly you would know that you shouldn't be doing this and just turn around.
I'll take this moment to say what I say every time we talk about the woods in the podcast. Don't go in the fucking woods. There's no reason to be in the woods.
Well, just be responsible. You know, that's why you need like a Garmin or an InReach or something. And not to say that they weren't responsible, because it sounded like they were quite responsible. So that's why I think there was foul play earlier than what the investigators believe. Because it's just not really adding up, in my opinion. Hours after those smiling photos were taken, the girls attempted two emergency calls to Dutch authorities, but neither of them connected. So I'm assuming they didn't have the emergency number for Panama. I'm not really sure, but of course they're in a very dense forest, so there's really no service.
But it could also be like America's 911, but I'm pretty sure in Europe it's 111. So they might have just been calling what they thought was a universal emergency number.
Yeah, I'm not really sure, but neither of them connected anyway, unfortunately. And then it's believed that as night fell, they tried to hunker down in the jungle, planning to continue in the daylight. But by then, they may have already been disoriented, moving deeper into dangerous territory and not knowing how to backtrack. Because I don't believe that they even had a map. I'm not really sure.
Don't fucking know
Maybe they
to.
had All Trails. I think All Trails was around back then. Maybe they had like a map on their phone, but those maps are not as detailed and they really just show like the trail that you're hiking that you selected, so I don't know if they could really
And
see much.
phone batteries back then didn't last. Oh,
Yeah, especially if you are using All Trails, that would kill your battery very quickly. That's true.
I'm assuming All Trails is an app for people who go outside.
Yes, it is. It's called All Trails, so they have all different trails that are from your local trail to national parks, where it helps you follow the route. It saved me many times from going in the wrong direction, even though I was very confident that I was going in the right direction.
So like kind of what like my ex-boyfriend did. Got it, got it.
Yeah, it's really easy to use. I would highly recommend it if you hike a lot. It'll save you some time. For sure. So some say that it was Azul, the dog of the owners of the cafe at the base of the trail, that may have accompanied them up the trail that initially sparked the search for the girls, because some people say that Azul came back down to the cafe. The girls did not. They're like, well, where are they? That's strange. And so that may have been what sparked the search for them, while others say that it was when they missed a scheduled coffee farm tour the following morning that alarm bells were kind of sounded like, oh, they didn't show up. There's something going on. Because again, they were thought of as very responsible and they really wanted to do all these things that they had planned.
It's a great name for a dog.
I know, yeah, it is a really good name for a dog. So their hiking route exists on a path commonly used by local villagers, of course. I'm sure that's how it came about in the first place, and then people just started hiking it recreationally. So if they had not gone too far off of the trail, then almost certainly someone would have heard them screaming out for help, right? If they were yelling for help. So again, this is kind of where the idea of foul play comes in, because unless they somehow managed to get very far off the trail and they were really not close to anyone, someone probably would have heard them.
I'm getting impatient to know who the foul play could have been from.
Yeah, you're not gonna like the the ending of this because we don't really know. So, a search was quickly launched, and rescue teams combed the jungle, local villages, and rivers, just trying to figure out like where they could have possibly ended up based off of where they started, right? And within days, Kris and Lisanne's families flew to Panama, bringing Dutch investigators to bolster the efforts. Unfortunately, even with all that extra help, there was still no trace of them at all, which again is very strange in my opinion. You'd think that you would find something. Of course, it is very dense, so if you're not searching like every square inch, you could miss things, but even just based on what they were wearing, like she was wearing I believe Kris was wearing like a red and white striped shirt. So, say they were looking for help, they put that on a tree or something. That would be very easy to see in a jungle of mostly green and brown.
I would think like they're bringing the dogs like Azul in. I mean, my dog Jan is blind and deaf, but she can sniff out food from anywhere. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure they brought in search dogs and they just couldn't find anything at all.
which again kind of follows foul play. Like, did they dig them deep down? Did they get fed to something? Which is all.
Yeah, I mean, there are some large animals in the forest, in the jungle there, including like boars and big cats and things like that. But it's pretty rare for them to attack a human. So that's why, and I'll get into more about when we find their remains, but it's pretty unlikely that it was wildlife related. So it later emerged that over those desperate days, Kris and Lisanne had made a staggering 77 attempts to call emergency services. One call connected briefly, but then it dropped.
That breaks my whole heart.
Yeah, so they were probably like, oh my God, and then it just dropped.
So I can't imagine the fear they felt. Like,
Yeah,
and then like the relief for 1 second, like, hey, maybe we're gonna get home.
right.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. So for weeks, nothing else surfaced. And then a discovery was made. A local woman turned in a blue backpack, claiming she had found it along a riverbank in the jungle. It was 14 hours on foot from the top of the Pianista Trail. So I guess it's possible that they got very turned around, but they found a river. A lot of people say that if you find a river, you should follow it. Eventually, it'll lead to a civilization. Oftentimes, when you follow a river, it goes over quite a few large drops, in my experience. So that's not always the best thing to do. But that's generally something that, they say in the hiking world.
that is actually one thing I do know from when we took Girl Scouts. That is,
Yeah.
if you get lost, sit where you are and wait for help.
That's usually the better thing to do because then you're closer to where people know you last were. But of course, there's just that like survival instinct kicks in. You're like, I have to get out of here. I have to do something.
Are you supposed to? I can't remember. You're supposed to go down the river because that's where like the water will be going to people, and
Yeah.
up the river is okay. It's good
Yeah.
for me to know these things because I get lost a lot.
Yeah. Again, you're probably going to find a few big drops that you would have to climb down. So I guess it depends on the terrain that you're into. If you're in a pretty flat area, then I think it'd be pretty safe to follow a river. But if you're in like a mountainous jungle, it's a little bit different.
And if you're in the Blair Witch Project, you're just screwed.
You're just going in circles. Yeah. So inside the backpack were two pairs of sunglasses, $83 in cash, multiple bras, which is very strange, a water bottle, Lisanne's passport, their phones, and the camera. So, like I said, there was no backpacking equipment. There was no food, which I assumed they ate any food that they had. But it wasn't like they had like backpacking food and tons of water and like a tent and a sleeping bag. That's all they had, as far as they know.
Okay, so I have multiple questions here. If this is foul play, they didn't take the money, they didn't take the
Hmm.
passport, which could be useful,
Hmm.
and they left the evidence.
It's weird they didn't take the money. I will say that. I do think that's pretty weird. Do we know if there was more money that was in there? We don't.
Well,
So,
$83 is a weirdly specific number to leave. Like,
yeah, I who knows if there was more money in there. Maybe they didn't do it for money. There are sick people out there that
that
just do it for fun.
that was my next question. You said they only found one passport.
Yeah, so I assume that Kris would have been hiking with her passport too. I mean, from what I understand, you're supposed to always have your passport when you're in a foreign country, but I don't
That
know.
makes me feel like it goes down an icky route.
Yeah. I don't know. The whole thing feels like kind of staged to me. Like, why is she turning in this backpack? Maybe she recognized from the picture Lisanne was one of the women that was missing. I'm not really sure, but it kind of just feels like finders keepers. Like, other than the passport, you know what I mean? It's nothing that of all that significant value. So maybe she saw the passport and recognized her and was like, "Oh, someone's probably," or just a passport and was like, "Oh, someone's probably looking for this." Maybe.
Or,
In America, that would not happen. They would say finders keepers more than likely and just keep it and probably throw the passport in the trash, honestly.
well, maybe there was a reward for any information on the girls.
There was a reward. It has never been cashed in. The reward was for quite a significant amount. So again, it seems like it was not financially motivated. I saw somewhere that the it was like 30,000 or something US dollars, which is equivalent to like $500,000 in Panama.
So
Yeah.
they're just sick fucks, is what I'm
So
getting.
yeah, that's that's the sense that I'm getting. So obviously that discovery was very chilling, not only because of what was inside, which again was strange. Why were you carrying around just like bras? I don't know. You know, maybe they were concerned they were going to get really sweaty or something. I don't know.
So, devil's advocate here. Whenever I travel, I always carry like a spare pack of clothes down to bras, like maybe two of them at a time, just because we got stuck in a hurricane once. Hurricane once, and like I was soaking wet in like a wedding outfit, and I was just like, this is awful. So whenever we travel, I always carry like two or three outfits down to like undergarments. But just like a bag of bras, it's like that episode of Parks and Rec when Anne moves and April gives her a bag of like loose onions, bras, and knives.
Yeah, it should, yeah, like if there was a whole change of clothes, that would make more sense. But to just have bras is quite strange in my opinion, especially
Yeah.
because you are just going on a day hike. And it was also strange because it was found in a place that was so remote and so difficult to reach that even seasoned locals rarely attempted to go in that direction. So again, that's why I say it feels kind of planted. Because it's like, why would that person even be there in the first place? Inside Lizanne's camera was perhaps the most haunting pieces of evidence in the case, which was over 90 photographs taken deep in the jungle. Most were black frames or blurred, captured in the dead of night between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. on April 8th, 7 days after the girls had vanished.
Oh, I hate that. I hate that so much.
So were they just like super lost and they keep hearing things, so they're taking pictures to see if there's like an animal or something that feels very Blair Witch to me, for sure.
That's what I was thinking. Like, no, I hate it. No, thank you. Oh, those
Yeah.
poor girls.
Yeah. So, and the fact that it was so long after they had gone missing was also quite strange. I think you can live 3 weeks without food, technically. So I guess as long as they had water, they could have been okay. But you can also start to become delirious when you haven't had food in a long time.
I slept and haven't been eating, and like you're barely drinking
Yeah.
water.
So maybe that's what was at play, or maybe someone else was taking those pictures.
Born.
Who knows? Some images showed their belongings laid out on rocks, and others, plastic bags, candy wrappers, dirt mounds. So that sounds like they had a little bit of food, mostly just snacks. Um, and one disturbing photo appeared to show the back of Kris's head, And some believe that there was blood on her temple. I didn't see, like, it didn't look like dark red blood. It looked like her scalp was just really pink, but I don't know. You know how people get on these mysterious photos. So maybe.
I would not like to see that.
Yeah, they're all just really strange pictures. And so were they trying to use the camera to see something, to use the flash to like light up an area, or were they taken by someone who was kind of just like playing with a camera? And so one theory supported by Dutch authors Marha West and Jurgen Snoren suggests that Lisanne, perhaps alone at this point, was using the flash to illuminate her surroundings or even to attract attention. So maybe she heard someone, she was like, let me try to create some light, which is a great idea actually, to attract people over here.
We're in the jungle, and jungle creatures in the jungle.
Yeah, and it's very dense, so it would be hard to see light. Another darker theory claims that the photos prove the involvement of a third party, like I'm saying, that they were not alone and that someone else was behind the camera.
That's
So,
how Gary Megan is missing to me.
yeah, yeah, in a less graphic way, thank God. So, the backpack triggered renewed searches, of course, along the river, and soon more discoveries emerged. First, Chris's denim shorts were found. Then there were some bones found, eventually totaling 33, but not all of which were the women's.
Okay.
Yeah, so is this some kind of like dumping ground? Not really sure. Maybe it's just people that have died in the river because it can rise and fall quite a bit, especially in the rainy season, it can rise quite a bit. So maybe people were drowning, who knows? Among the bones found was a pelvis bone and a foot still inside a boot.
I don't know why that just gave me like a visceral reaction.
Yeah, it's very spooky. Forensic tests revealed injuries, but no definitive cause of death. Again, they only found 33 bones. Not all of them were theirs. The human body has, I think, like 200 bones or something like that. So very hard to tell what could have happened. Some bones showed signs of exposure to the elements, but there wasn't really a lot of scraping, which would be usually seen if there was like a lot of scavenging.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the first thing that was strange. And the bones were discovered a 14-hour hike north and past two rivers from where the girls were originally known to be. So again, it's like why it's weird that they would have gone that far. And especially to hike north seems strange to me. Kris and Lisanne had somehow traveled much farther than planned, obviously, if we're saying that it was just accidental and they met their fate in the elements. Investigators concluded that the girls likely followed the riverbed, sustaining injuries along the way before succumbing to exhaustion, exposure, or an accident. You know, when you're very tired, it's easy to misstep, you break an ankle. What are you going to do then?
And you're weak because you're not really eating and not drinking water and
Yeah,
walking hours on end.
yeah. Yeah, and April is on the verge of the start of the rainy season.
They're damp too.
Yeah, but at this point, the river is relatively low. It's relatively shallow, so it's unlikely that they got swept away and drowned. But later in April, the rivers multiply in size. So is it possible that they were actually in a different location, and as the water started coming in and moving down, their bones were swept further down the river?
Is there like a society up there, like where they could have been brushed down from, or is it all just still like forest?
There's always like those people that want to live in the middle of the forest. So there were people that were kind of around there, but it didn't seem like there was like specifically towns. I'm not
Oh,
really sure though. There might have been like a city that was higher north. But again, they checked all the cities. So I assume if someone had seen them, they would have said they went that way, unless they're covering something up.
well, that's what I was getting more curious about. Like, if someone, like you said, their bodies got like knocked down and went down the riverbed, if they had gotten up there and met some people and then
Mhm.
bad people do bad things and the bodies traveled down.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible. But we'll kind of get into that too, because again, they just found bones, and it wasn't that long after they had gone missing. So,
And you said that there wasn't really a lot of marks of scavengers,
no, I think there was some markings, but
like a lot.
not what they would expect, I guess, or not
Okay.
what's common. Yeah.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
Yeah, and so to be a little graphic, corpses float due to gases that are internally released post-mortem. I think a lot of people know that. And so if they died on the bank of the river, it's likely that their remains were eventually swept away as the rainy season took hold. So this whole accident theory, people aren't buying it. They're like, that doesn't make any sense. So, and this is where it was actually hard to find information on in like American sources. So a lot of these sources are translated from Panamanian news sources or Central American news sources. So criminologist Octavio Calderon said on the case, two bones from different parts of the body from two people never end up together on a sandbar. This shows that someone placed them there. There is no other reason.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which that totally makes sense. Like, why would only two bones from two different people end up on one sandbar? Where are the rest of the bones?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very strange. Chris's bones are discussed less often regarding the disappearance because when her fragments were found, her bone fragments were found, forensic investigators claimed that Chris's bones were bleached in some fashion, that phosphorus was discovered on her bones, and the experts also suggested the possible use of lime. So these are farming chemicals used to amend soil, generally. And no phosphates were found in the soil sample from the area. So it's not like there was like a super high concentration of these. Again, these are chemicals that you use to amend soil, and it's pretty uncommon for them to leach out of the soil, I guess. Like usually they're pretty absorbed into the soil. So to be in a high enough concentration that it would bleach her bones is basically impossible from my understanding. So
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, well, the sun could have bleached it, but like, no, no.
so yeah, the sun does bleach bones, but them finding the phosphorus and
Yeah.
possibly lime, that changes things. And also, Lisanne's bones were not bleached. So you would think that two women who go missing at the same time, under the same conditions, they would have similar decomposition. Maybe one was a little bit after the other. So that's very strange. And only two bones from Kris have been found, a piece of her pelvis and a rib bone. So, where are the rest of the bones? Generally, bones get dense and they sink, so in theory, they would be in the riverbed, but supposedly they have searched it. There was the two researchers that I mentioned earlier, the two Dutch researchers. They were trying to go back to the river to search it, but I couldn't find any information on actually if they actually went and did it. I know they were trying to get like permission and get that all figured out. Maybe they'll find more of their bones if they go back.
The motive, like, they didn't take the money, they didn't take the
Mm.
passports, they killed the girls.
Yeah.
What was
Yeah.
the motive?
Yeah. So I don't know I don't know exactly. Panama is relatively safe, but of course no country is, 100% safe. Was this some kind of illegal drug operation that they stumbled upon in the mountains? They're like, well, we can't let them go.
But then why bleach one bones but not the other bones?
Yeah, so I don't know if they scattered them. I don't know if they buried some of them. I'll kind of get more into it. But if phosphorus and lime were used, there would be like fragments of things that left behind. So maybe it's just a matter of finding it in a very dense forest where it might have been buried. At this point, it's been buried for quite some time if they did bury it. So that's, of course, going to change things as well. That was kind of what my mind meant too, is that something was going on in that forest that they stumbled upon by accident and they basically were like, well, we can't let you go. Yeah.
Okay.
So something even quite more strange. In late August of 2014, so this was 5 months from when they believed the women passed away, a large lump of Lisanne's skin was found, and it was still in the early state of decomposition. So
I'm sorry, I
another
know you can't see me, but I'm gagging. How does one find a large lump of skin and like identify it as that and figure out who to call in that situation?
Yeah, I'm sure it looks quite strange. I can't imagine finding that. So this points to the idea that the body was kept in a humid place under shade and in low temperatures. So I don't know if they were thinking maybe it was frozen or just kept somewhere that kind of like in an underground cellar type place where it's more constant and it's cooler. Yeah, very weird. And somehow Chris's bones had disconnected from all the flesh and aged rapidly, but Lisanne's bodily tissue was discovered intact in, again, a relatively fresh condition. So,
They
given
did die
the
at the same
inconsistency,
time?
so they think it's possible that Lisanne lived maybe a week beyond Kris. They think that Kris passed away first, but again, they don't know for sure.
Okay, because it sounded like maybe one of them was kind of kept alive to torture.
It could be that. It could be that one of them was being kept alive. Maybe that's why they kept Lisanne's passport at first. Maybe they were thinking of trafficking her, decided against it when they found out about all the media. I don't know.
I hate all of this.
Yeah. It's very strange. And the inconsistency between the states of the bodily tissue of the two girls, we can assume that the conditions of the decay were quite different for reasons that we don't know. Which again, if it was a natural death, they would be pretty similar.
Is it the Dutch doing this research, or is it Panama?
No, so it started as Panama, and it sounds like they did not handle the evidence very well at first, unfortunately. So I
Well,
think
it
the
kind
Dutch
of
were assisting, but they don't have any jurisdiction in Panama. So,
seems like cases we've talked about in the past where like different jurisdictions have pissing contests and like things could have been
mhm,
done and things could have been done faster and better if we all just
mhm.
hugged each other and got along.
Right. Yeah. So, and like we were talking about the bones. So, the bones that belong to the girls specifically, Panamanian forensic anthropologists said there are no discernible scratches of any kind on the bones, neither of natural nor cultural origin. There are no marks on the bones at all. There's no evidence that animals scavenged the Hollandesas, I guess is what they call them. So, remember, there were 33 bones that were found. They did not all belong to the women. Some of them did have some markings, I guess, but the bones that specifically belonged to the women did not have any markings to indicate that they had been attacked by like a wild boar or a big cat or something like that. So that takes that out of the running there.
Huh. It's
Yeah.
stranger and stranger.
Yeah, so certainly it's possible or even likely that the bodily remains could be spread a far distance from each other in a river, right? River's moving, it's carrying things down. But what doesn't make sense is that many of the bones washed up on the same exact small bank of the river many kilometers downstream. So that's what we mentioned earlier in that quote from the criminologist. So, Panama conducted multiple searches in the area, but there was more than one issue. The evidence collection procedure was done very poorly. The locals often disrupted the investigation sites, such as the folded jean shorts that were supposedly found in the river. So
Well,
that's not good.
get why people do that, but like maybe don't do that.
Yeah, yeah. And that just makes it seem more suspicious to me that multiple people were in on it.
Yeah, it makes it seem like okay, well, you guys probably are in on it too.
Hmm. Allegedly, there were many pieces of evidence that weren't followed up on, such as fingerprints. Now, I don't know what the fingerprints were on. I couldn't find a lot of information about that, but supposedly there were fingerprints on something, maybe the backpack or something like that, that's apparently were not followed up on. Like they just said, oh, this was like a natural accidental death, and they really didn't investigate it further.
Fingerprints are so important.
Yeah, it's strange that they wouldn't follow up on that. And kind of in that same vein, the case was closed before a lot of questions could even receive an appropriate answer. Like they were just like, "Eh, forget it." It's an accidental case closed.
Oopsie
Um,
doodle.
yeah, and communication with the public was pretty subpar. So no information was made directly available to the public during the investigation, which is not super uncommon, but usually they will release some things, especially in a situation like this.
Yeah, especially when they're like, at that point, we're actively trying to find them alive.
Y- Well, yeah, I mean, after 2 weeks, I
Yeah,
think they knew that they were
but in the
passed away.
beginning, we were actively trying to find them alive.
Yeah. So over the years, like I said, it's been 11 years at this point. Countless theories have swirled around, especially on the internet with the internet sleuths. So some people say Kris and Lisanne were victims of foul play, perhaps targeted, kidnapped, or even trafficked. I mean, someone could have seen them before they even started the trail, right? Especially if you're a trafficker, to get these two young women alone in a very desolate area, that's kind of ideal.
Yeah.
So that is one possibility. Others point to the possibility of planted evidence, again, like the backpack, which was in really pristine condition, and it was suspicious that it had been in the rainforest for weeks and was still in such great condition, and this woman just like happened upon it in an area where most people don't even go because it's so treacherous.
But what good would planting the backpack do?
Maybe to lead them off the trail of where they actually were taken, because initially they were questioning, right, all these little cities and everything kind of in that area where they possibly could have gone. And then they find the backpack, and all of a sudden they're just focusing on that river,
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. I see what you're saying. Gotcha.
you know? And still others, like Marha and here again, who I mentioned earlier, they believe that the truth is far simpler, and the two inexperienced hikers ventured too far, lost their way, and then they just suffered like tragic accidents and passed away. Which it is possible when you take the case at face value. But then when you learn all these details, you're like, that makes really no sense at all. And really, even they admit there are many unknowns. Like, why were there so many nighttime photos taken? Why did one phone suddenly switch on days later? And why did it take so long for the remains to be found in such a concentrated area?
Yeah, it's an accidental death just really doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't track with all of this at all. From the impression that I got was that there may have been some biases against this situation, and that if the person had been Panamanian or had been from an upper class family, like in any area, right? There's always more attention paid to the people that are considered very important in that area. And so there was maybe some real issues in the investigation that unfortunately there might have been more evidence that was just not found because of the lack of investigation.
Yeah.
It's now been over a decade since Kris and Lisanne's final hike, and their story endures because it is more than a mystery. It's a reminder of how fragile the line is between adventure and tragedy, which I think is very true.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, these two young women set out with excitement, they were determined, and they had a lot of trust in the world. And this could really happen anywhere. I don't think it's specifically Central America, South America, anything like that. Like this could happen here. This could happen anywhere.
Yeah.
It does happen here quite often in the US. People disappear on hiking trails all the time. Yeah, whether it was an accident, foul play, or something in between, the disappearance of Kris and Lisanne is one of the more chilling reminders that sometimes the most dangerous places are just like being in somewhere desolate and isolated and unfamiliar. So, yeah, unfortunately, that's all I have.
What more information can you find? It's lost to the woods.
Yeah, it's kind of lost in the jungle at this point. So maybe there'll be a really heavy rainfall one year and like a bunch more bones will be found, or who knows.
So if you go hiking or any of those things, make sure everybody knows where you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always good to have an in-reach device or like a satellite phone device that you can at least send a message through. And iPhones, I don't know if Androids have this, but iPhones now have like an SOS feature as well. So if this had happened last year, probably would have been a very different outcome if it was truly just an incident of them getting lost and not being able to figure out how to get out of there.
Oh, families.
Yeah, yeah, I can only imagine the fear of your child going missing and then going missing in another country. That's just a whole nother level of fear. They lost their lives very early, and it's very, very sad. And so, yeah, we really feel terrible for their families, and we hope that one day you get the answers. I hope someday maybe someone will come forward. Like we always say, those deathbed confessions, or maybe someone that at some point becomes like really strapped for cash and they just want the reward money, which is still standing as far as I know. We hope we get the answers. And definitely a cautionary tale of going out into the jungle or the woods or anywhere where you're going to be isolated.
I'm putting a tracker on you. If Dad
Yeah. Well,
hasn't already.
I don't usually go isolated places, but you can also rent in-reach devices if you don't want to buy one, which is what I usually do if I go to somewhere that doesn't have any cell service, so I can at least check in.
Okay, yeah, I don't really know what that means. I know that, like, for emergencies, I have a hand crank radio, phone charger, flashlight thing in my car.
No, it's not that. It's like a satellite device, so it sends messages through. It's like a satellite phone. So some of them are two-way, some of them are just
Oh, okay, okay. Now I know what you're talking
one-way.
about.
Yeah, so you can rent them. They're pretty cheap if you don't want to buy it and pay for the service if you don't use it enough. But yeah, I would highly recommend that. Tell people where you're going. Don't go beyond where you told people you're going. Who knows? They could have done everything right and something bad just happened to them. I don't know if there were other people on the trail that day. There was a restaurant at the base of the trail, so that kind
That
of made me
noticed that
think.
they didn't come back. So, like, there's
Hmm.
something weird going on there.
Yeah, it's definitely something weird. So, yeah, that's that story. And what next week? What are we doing? Well, it's Cassandra's case. What are you doing next week?
The seventh goddamn seal.
Okay, so we're doing the seventh seal.
We're,
Finally. Oh,
we're gonna get through it, guys.
yeah, finally. And then we'll do another movie review one, something a little bit. I mean, the movie is not that much lighter, but a
Oh,
little bit
okay.
lighter than this.
All right, then the one after that, we're gonna do something fun
Well,
because we
that'll be
can't.
your case. So sure, do whatever you want.
Oh, you should not say that to me, my dear sister. I'll start the vampire entire. I don't even know how long that would take.
Yeah, I just watched Queen of the Damned the other day.
The best movies ever.
So good. Yeah, I know. I wanted to be her so bad. She had so many good outfits.
I know. I have a dress that kind of looks like hers. Actually, I have two, but one of them is broken. But well, my body isn't the same as it was when I was in sixth grade.
Yeah, I can't imagine it would be.
But yes, so we'll do the seventh seal. We'll get
Mhm.
through it together. We'll be done.
Yes. Yeah. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.
Stay
Stay
tuned.
strange.